Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people that want the best info, but just don't have the time. Get your podcast fix with the Cliff Notes versions of your favorite podcasts. No fluff, just the actionable golden nuggets. Having this much knowledge at your fingertips should be downright illegal. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with Satori Prime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. So if you haven't signed up to our PEP list to receive a recap email about this week's shows, make sure you head over to performancepodcasts.com. That's podcasts with an S at the end of it. So make sure you remember that. You can even pick up 6 hours of subliminal training when you sign up. That basically means now you can work on things like speed reading, memory, and even how to be more decisive through subliminal messaging just by listening. So make sure you do that. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to our show via iTunes, you can also do that at performancepodcasts.com/iTunes. Or if you prefer to use Stitcher, you can do the same thing at performancepodcasts.com/Stitcher. And remember, we have new episodes coming out every Monday and Thursday morning, so you can grab those then. Lastly, if you want to keep up with everything that we do at Satori Prime, you can always head over to our main site, satoriprime.com, and roam around. We have a ton of free content that we constantly update. And if any of you are looking for some mentorship around your marketing efforts, and I'm talking specifically about Facebook paid marketing on how you can use that to double, triple, or even quadruple your business, then we do actually have a couple of masterminds we run that can absolutely transform your marketing efforts in less than 90 days. So you can check those out by applying to see if you're a fit for one of them at satoriprime.com/mastermind. And with that, let's kick off today's show. All right. So on today's episode, we're interviewing Scott Britton. Scott Britton is a buddy of mine. He actually just moved recently back to New York here, as you'll find out, was out in San Diego for quite some time. And he has one of the most interesting backgrounds. I don't want to ruin too much. I want him to tell you the story, but he's a young entrepreneur with a vast experience and really came from very mediocre at best upbringing to just doing incredible things. And he shares just really raw and brilliantly what that process was like for him, which I think is incredible just to listen to. So that's what we're going to do in part one. I'll let you listen to that. And then in part two, we're actually going to talk about what he's up to right now in life and business, which is a really, really cool thing that he actually kind of developed after being at Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within program. So definitely stick around till part two as well. And without further ado, let's go straight to the interview with Scott Britton. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm here with a good buddy, Scott Britton. What's up, my man?
What's up, dude? How are you?
Good. Good to have you back on our coast. Scott's actually been living in San Diego for a while. But I gave people a little bit of rundown, but obviously I want them to hear it from you. You've had quite the illustrious career in a very, very short time frame. But tell them, I mentioned to them a little bit about your school and stuff like that, but Princeton Football, like, Let's start at least there, and then we'll kind of work through some of the business background.
Yeah, man. Well, that like sports, it's really interesting. I know a lot of your audience is super into personal development.
Yes. And
becoming their best selves and growing in progress. And growing up, man, like I didn't realize it, but football was actually the first form of personal development for me.
Oh, hell yeah.
It was this thing that I wanted to get better at. And I wanted to be the best that I could be. I wanted to really max myself out. And like, I watch some football now, but I don't really care. Like when I played it, I was all about it and obsessed with it. And that was really a realization that like, I really just love getting better and trying to just achieve growth. And that was kind of my real first channel for that. So I was super blessed to, go to Princeton to play football, and I totally like scored touchdowns to sneak into that school. Definitely would not have gotten in there without the athletic stuff. And, you know, it was a fantastic experience, man. Like I come from like, you know, the town that I come from.
Yeah, it was so funny.
You know, it's like it's not a place where a lot of people go to schools like that. Big public high school, and going to a place where there's a ton of people named like McWorthington, you know, whatever. They all went to country day schools. I didn't know what that was. It was an interesting experience for me, but just awesome because guys on my team, people I was around with, everybody just wanted to do cool things. And that was a really great just environment.
It's amazing. It's, by the way, for those that don't know, we were just laughing, but the town he's from is actually the town that my wife grew up in. It's like, it's nowhere Pennsylvania. It's just, that's so funny that he's from there.
Yeah, man.
It's cool though, because I think that, and you maybe attest to this, you know, sometimes when you change your environment and you change your circle, because that town, not to knock down Newtown by any means, but it's not really like upper crust, you know, whatever. So there's certain conversation that you're around because that's the community that you're around.
Dude, my expectations for myself skyrocketed.
Exactly.
Because everyone around me, you know, in my class, I had a Rockefeller, a Forbes, Frist, and I'm like, dude, like I'm thinking small potatoes. Like I was like the big dog in my town was the guy who owned the gym. He owned the Newtown Athletic Club, and like the guy whose dad owned the car dealership. And I was like, man, like someday, like I'm gonna like get there. And then like all of a sudden I'm in an environment where like people are starting companies, you know, kids' dads are barons of something. Wow. And I'm like, dude, I need to step up my game. And now, I mean, it's just been such a great reminder to me that like you have to be super intentional about your environment.
Yeah.
You surround yourself with, not only just for like how you show up in the world, but just like your expectations for yourself, which dictate a lot of it.
Yeah, and you said we'll get into it a little bit, but I think you're talking about identity conditioning, which is something that we'll talk about a little bit later. But before we jump into that, give people a little background on. So you leave school, and your world is exploded because you're around these kids. You're like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah, dude. So I leave school. My first job was actually working for a sports agency that represented pro baseball players in Chicago. So I like everybody, I was like, who is a sports fan is like, what would be the coolest job ever? Like be Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
And, you know, I went out and did that. I went out and did that. And dude, like it was sweet. My first day was like, go to a Victoria's Secret photo shoot and assist Gordon Beckham, who was the rookie of the year last year, like with photos and stuff. And I was like, this is sick.
Wow.
But, you know, pretty quickly, I was like, every day was about me trying to get free Escalades for this all-star and this free stuff and just like stuff that wasn't that interesting. And nothing against that industry, and the people I worked with were great, but it was a situation where you kind of like, you look at like the top dog at the top level of where you could go.
Yeah. And
you're just kind of like, I don't want that. And that was that happened like 4 months in. And
Beautiful.
Coincidentally, I was reading 4 Hour Workweek for the first time. And I was like, wow, there's this thing called entrepreneurship. I never really thought about because I was trying to make tackles in college I felt my buddy, some kid that was in a class with me. I just read an article in the New York Times at the time that he had raised $1 million from Peter Thiel, who was the original Facebook investor, co-founder of PayPal. And it was for this like college only social network. And so I cold called him. I found his number and I cold called him and convinced him to give me an internship.
That's balls, man.
Yeah, it was sweet.
How old were you? I
was 22 or 21, like right out of college. I mean, it was 5 months out of college.
That's awesome.
And a couple phone calls. He said, yeah, he was going to pay me lunch receipts and reimburse me for train tickets. And I ended up, moving back with my parents, leaving my apartment and just commuting to New York. And that was a 4-hour round trip. So I would literally pack a gym bag on Mondays and have all my clothes in it for the week and just sleep on the couch of the office, friends' places, bounce around.
Wow.
I was a vagabond for like 4 months until I finally started getting paid enough to move up there. And that kind of launched me into the world of high-tech entrepreneurship. And from there, had basically been involved in software companies in New York until I guess it was August of 2014, or I'm sorry, August of 2012. And what had happened is I joined this amazing company called Single Platform as their first executive biz dev hire. And in 2 years, we went from 13 employees to close to 100.
Wow.
We ended up selling to Constant Contact for $100 million. It was a huge deal.
For $100 million?
Yeah.
You say it like I just put cream cheese on a bagel. It's like $100 million.
Yeah, dude, it was pretty gnarly. And it was really, really amazing. And one of the things that was like really cool about it was just to see how, like, when you find a product that people really want and it's like digital, like you can grow it really fast.
Yeah. I just want to backtrack one thing to something that you said, which I think is so important. I was talking to someone the other day and they were, we consult a lot of people in our line of work. And she's like, look, I want to make multiple six figures and I want to figure out how to do it working 15 hours a week. And I was like, look, build something, you're going to have to sacrifice and do things that are crazy. And then you share a story. I commuted 4 hours to this thing, slept on a couch in the office at the age of 22. How many 22-year-olds are doing that?
Dude, let me tell you this. Listen, man, I'm not trying to brag or anything. I was a captain of the Princeton football team. That dude usually out of college is working for Goldman, making 6 figs, living a pretty, nice life.
Yeah.
And I was sleeping on the couch and bartending at night after my startup job at McFadden's, where I had to dance in the bar and invite all my friends just so I could make money. That was shameful. Or it was embarrassing.
Amazing.
But that's what I wanted. So, I was going to do whatever it takes. And one of the things I'm in a period now where I'm on trying to do a new thing and it's very ambiguous. And it's kind of the equation that I look at is this is your vision. This is comfort. If you give up, you're basically saying you care more about comfort than whatever your vision is.
100%. And just to be clear, comfort, and we've spoken about this on many podcasts, comfort is the known. Whatever is known and comfortable, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm sitting on a couch comfort. It's just what you know and understand. Just put that in perspective. I love that you said that. Captain of the fucking Princeton football team ends up sleeping on couch in New York City. I'm sure your parents were thrilled when you told them what you were doing.
Yeah, man. They were like, are you sure this is a good idea? And, I'm super blessed in that I have amazing parents who support me no matter what. But yeah, I mean, people looked at me like I had 7 heads that were on my team, that were, in my family. Because I think and I've heard you talk about this actually, and there's a societal expectation and constraint that often dictates how we live and what we do.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard to go against that.
Look, if you bought, that's why I love that you said I went from captain of the Princeton football team to this, because the societal thing would be exactly like you said. You should have been at Goldman and, on a track that in 5 years you would have been making 7 figures and blah, 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 blah. But even the fact that you went to this agency, which I'm sure if you stuck around there, you'd probably be doing really, really well. But I love that you said that. I looked at the top guy and I just went, is that really where I want to be? And most people don't even look that far up. They're just kind of like, I'll have my head down for 3 years. I'll do what they tell me. And hopefully I'll have a secure enough job, which is a joke. You and I both know. So I'm proud of you.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And, there's an approach in high-tech software that is preached, and it makes sense for a lot of companies, not every company, but it's just this whole lean startup mentality where you want to fail often, fail fast.
Yes.
And until you find what the sweet spot is. And I've tried to just take that approach with my career in terms of listen, if I think that this is the number one thing I want to do, I'm going to try it and find out. And if I don't, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to try the next thing, and I'll just keep trying until I find it.
You told me before that your resume is what? What's the term you used?
It looks like a Mexican jumping bean.
But here's the funny part is no one is giving you a job. You're creating your own life.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of one of these things where, people at first kind of admonish you if you're not necessarily going along, or they kind of look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah.
But once you reach a certain level of success or whatever, all of a sudden that becomes admiration.
Yeah.
And it's a very quick shift. And a lot of the people that thought it was a crazy idea or thought I was an idiot, or ping me for career advice, which is kind of ironic. And I think that our calling as people listening to the show, as somebody who educates, empowers, and inspires, as we see in the background there, is to be a leader. People are dying to be led.
Yeah.
And that means, doing the things that other people probably aren't willing to.
Well, whenever you come out with an idea or something against the norm, you're labeled crazy, because it's not even that it's crazy. It's whatever someone can't comprehend how they would do. Okay, so you played football, right? For Princeton as a amazing linebacker. I actually love football, so I can admire that. But what it would take to be that man on that field, to me, is crazy. And I'm a workout fanatic, but I'm sure what you guys had to go through and the 2-a-days and the, stack, that to me is crazy. And yet you were with a gang of guys that you chose that's the crazy that we want to live right now. As entrepreneurs, we have our own version of crazy.
Totally.
And
yeah. I mean, I have a lot of friends I have a friend, I'm not going to name his name, but he just sold his company a couple weeks ago to Groupon for $30 million. He's 28 years old. And he said, and the deal fell through at the 11th hour and then came back. It wasn't going to happen. And his investors weren't in. And he's like, dude, I have $1,300 in my bank. I've maxed out credit cards. I have lived I've just grinded for 3 years. I don't even know what it's like to go to a happy hour anymore.
Wow.
And the difference, right? If it didn't go through, he would have had nothing. And instead he never has to worry about his career, his finances for the rest of his life, probably his kid's life. And yeah, man, I mean,
conviction.
You got to do crazy, man. You got to get a little radical at times to really go out and be a game changer.
Yeah, it's funny. We'll talk a lot about this, I'm sure, as we go along. But even in that example, right? So someone's now going to see this headline's going to read 28-year-old kid sells his company to Groupon for $30 million. the first thing that's going to come into everyone's head listening is like, God damn, what a lucky motherfucker. Like, 28 years old, already made $30 million, blah, blah, blah. And I bet for 3 years, like you said, this kid had probably a life that everyone would be like, absolutely not willing to do that.
Yeah, totally. An interesting thing that I heard recently that reminds me of, or it just makes me think about this, and is that jealousy is actually self-loathing. Because what it really means is that you're just mad because you weren't willing to give up what that person was to have what they have.
Yeah. I love that. It's a great line.
I'm like, you know what? That's true. And I don't really ever feel jealousy. And I know envy. And I feel, if I ever feel that, I'm like, man, like, are you willing? You just have to go to default to that question. Like, okay, cool. Like, are you willing to give up what that person did for that? Because that's the deal. Like, that's what you're signing up for. Don't feel this way unless you want to sign up for that.
Yeah. There's a very good reason why 1% of people have the level of success that they have, because there's only, I believe, and I've coached thousands of people, 1% of people willing to do what it takes and sacrifice parts of their lives. And I love that every single person I've ever interviewed that's gone, on this entrepreneurial roller coaster ride, everyone has a dramatic story. Everyone has like, I hit rock bottom and then I jumped here. You have to. I've never met an entrepreneur that doesn't.
Dude, have you ever seen this? There's this curve. I think it might have been have you read the book, The 12-Week Year?
No.
Excellent book on goal setting. Cool. And there's this curve where it basically goes like this. It's almost kind of like an extended U where it goes here and then down and then back up. And it says that when people like think about entrepreneurship or ideas or their New Year's or whatever it is, you start off high, you go informed optimism. And then you go down to, or uninformed optimism. And then it's informed pessimism. Like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. This sucks. And then it's valley of despair, where you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And most people give up between here and here.
Absolutely.
And then the people that stick it out all of a sudden go from valley of despair back up to informed optimism, and then ultimately whatever their goal is.
Yeah. I love that.
Like being aware of that, like, this is supposed to happen. Like, you're not going to catch lightning in a bottle and overnight, like without any work, like, just become an amazing instant success. Like, realizing that that's supposed to happen is actually incredibly comforting.
Say to people, because I heard this on another one of your interviews, but explain to people your why, and then I just kind of want to tie that in. So like your why or your mission in life.
Yeah, man. It always changes. But actually what my mission is at this point, because I'm constantly trying to evaluate that stuff, is to really just like, make everyone I interact with's lives better, but also like spread the kingdom of God. That's like seriously my mission, dude.
Wow.
And, that like people can have whatever beliefs they want, but like, I just want to live in such a way, and help as many people as I can, that they look and go, what does that dude have? And how can I get it? And listen, like, you can have whatever spiritual beliefs you want, but like, if you want to have, like, if you really want to lead people, you just got to live an extraordinary life that has people asking like, what's that dude on? You don't tell people how to live.
Yeah. You said something in one of the lines. You just said like kind of, almost very similar to what this says back here, but you said, inspire, motivate, entertain.
Yeah.
We're 3. So even in what you said right now, it's just a different way to say that.
Oh, dude, is that from the Drish podcast?
That was from Life on Fire.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So that's like the unique ability stuff work I've done, is what I realize is like, those are the moments when I feel most alive.
And the reason I bring that up is because that you just mentioned, right? What I've noticed in interviewing really high level people is when they start that journey, they're very clear on their why. They're very clear not necessarily on the physical result. Okay, so they won't say something like, okay, say for our example, I won't say that my goal is to create a Facebook training mastermind, right? Like, honestly, that was never in our cards. But I know that my goal is to educate, empower, and make sure that people prosper. Everything that I ask is always, is that in line with that? If it's in line with that, I keep pushing. And so I think where people hit that valley of despair, right in between like that section, is because they're not clear on the big mission, like the big why. They're focused on that one little thing, like, I'm going to make this bottle. But that's not really why you're in business. You're in business to have people be, I'm really reaching here, but have people be able to drink water or like be healthy or something like that. And then this is just the outcome. But if you're on that journey and you're like, you know what? And this is what I said to you before. This is what I love about you is, you know what? Making bottles is not really, it's just not working. And they pivot and they'll go to something else that still fits in line with having people live healthy lifestyles. And so even though they're down here, it's not like, oh, it sucks. It's like, oh, that didn't work. Let's just go somewhere else.
Dude, you got to reconnect with your vision.
Exactly.
Anytime. And it's the same exact thing. Your why, your vision is your why.
Yeah.
Anytime, listen, there's been moments this week where I feel like giving up, where I feel like I don't get out of bed, man.
Me too.
Like, that's the deal. That happens to everybody. And you just got to default to your vision. Like, that's the power source, dude. That's it. And like, you can have all types of visions, but I think like, a more compelling future that emotionally charges you, that connects not only to like your business, but your personal. So like, if you just say like, yeah, I want to have the biggest company ever, that's not sustainable. But if you're like, listen, I want to build this massive company that is going to employ and empower hundreds of people. It's going to make me feel electric to know that I'm going to be able to give my family, my kids the lifestyle I want. I'm going to be able to travel. I'm going to be able to have all the experiences I ever wanted. I'm going to be able to give back. Like, it needs to connect the personal and the business. And I think those three things are essential. And dude, I think about my vision every single day.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I feel like it's tattooed on you at this point, because even when I asked you what's your why, you said it slightly differently, but who cares? At the end of the day, it's still that same thing. I hope people heard. It's however you said it, it's still inspiring, motivating people, entertaining people. So I think this is a perfect segue to talk about what you're up to right now. So tell people
totally.
Well, for that, you're going to have to come back to part 2, because we're going to keep that off till the second part, in which Scott's going to tell us exactly what he's been working on today. But I mean, just some key takeaways, even right here from the end. How crystal clear is your vision? Is everything that you're doing in your life or in your business aligned with that vision? And if it's not, this is a great time to just pause and take a look. I guarantee you that if something is not aligned with your vision, at some point, it will become, I don't want to say a tragedy, but at some point, the universe will check you back into place, right? And you're going to realign. So it's either you're going to do it on your own and do it willingly, or, the universe has a funny way of putting us back on track. So really, really important to do that. And again, make sure you come back in a couple of days for part 2 with Scott Britton, because the project he's working on is really, really cool. You're definitely going to want to hear about it. All right. We'll see you on the next Performance Enhancing Podcast, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to satoriprime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my eyes and my aching thoughts? start to grow. Oh my God, you're smart. My soundless chords. Where the sea